Does it seem to you that there's an excessive amount of comparing one actor with another? When Olivier does something, they'll talk about Gielgud's this and that, and your Titus and Olivier's Titus Andronicus, and that kind of thing. They're leaping now into much later, of course. I often wonder if that introduces a feeling of competition always. Are you always aware of Olivier and Gielgud looking over your shoulder when you do a role?
Well, not so much Olivier, because I realized at once, I saw him in a film, I realized at once that we were very similar in type. We have the same sort of features, the planes of our face are vaguely alike. And I don't mean that we look alike really, but we have the same sort of shape and weight and size and so on. Also, I realized that my voice was very near, in its natural way, to Olivier's, except mine was, his is much more a silver trumpet, mine is a sort of baritone. Yeah. And so I deliberately avoided seeing him. Though I did see him, I saw him in two plays in my whole life. One was The Entertainer of John Osborne's, and the other was a play called Semi-Detached by I don't know who. And I saw about half an hour of Beckett, which he did here on Broadway, and I was playing across the street, and on the opening night they went up much earlier than we did, so I popped over to see him. So I deliberately avoided watching Larry Olivier, who was a very great friend, in case I was over-influenced by him. But I deliberately watched Gielgud, because we were so different that there was no possible way that Gielgud could influence my speaking of verse or my movement or anything, because we were so totally different. And I learned an enormous amount from him. I believe Gielgud to be the finest verse speaker in the world. And when he does it when he's at his very best, it's that hair-raising job again, all over again.
He was here the other day, and he in fact recalled the scrubbing scene and said that even with your back to the audience, you had some sense, some power, or whatever that mysterious thing is, and recalled that scene. But it's interesting that you've consciously deprived yourself, in a way, of seeing what many people call, if not the greatest actor.
Well, I wasn't really aware of it, but Ken Tynan, you know who Ken Tynan is. Yeah, Ken Tynan is writing a profile for the New Yorker of Laurence Olivier. And so he came to me he knew that I was a friend of Olivier's, and he came to me to interview me about Olivier. And I said, are you sure that you got Larry's permission and so on? And he said he did. And I saw Larry later, and I don't think he really did have it. But anyway, I was very cagey. But it was only when Ken, who's also a friend, asked me how much influence Olivier had on me, that before going to see Ken, I thought, I said to my wife, Susan, what am I going to say to Ken about Larry? Because I don't want to tell, scatological stories or anything like that, if indeed there are any. So
sounds like there are.
Anyway, and so I was sitting there before meeting Tynan for dinner. And I said, I've only seen Larry in 2 plays. Never seen him play Shakespeare, never seen. And that was, I was really surprised myself that I'd seen him so little. Of course, you must understand that I've been a tax exile from Great Britain for the last 23 years, which also accounts for the fact that I haven't seen him. Yes. I've lived in Switzerland for 23 years.
Gee. Well, do you avoid his films for the same reason, or do you feel not vulnerable to the influence?
Well, I don't watch films anyway, and so that was no deprivation.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Can a bad review still get to you?
I think so. Even a good one can. Yeah. For instance, the recent play that opened, I haven't read any notices about myself.
That's a rule, is it?
Yes. I don't make a fetish of it, but I'd rather not know. Good or bad, I'd rather not know. Because if they're good, as I always say, they're not good enough. Yeah. And if they're bad, they upset you. Yeah. And however, when Camelot opened here in New York a month ago, whatever it was, Susan said that the notices are very good, particularly for you. And she said, and the Times is a sort of rave. And she kept on sort of shoving it around, hoping that I would read it. But I resolutely refused to read it, or to read anything.
I hope she hid the one from you that said that you seem to own the stage as if by birthright.
Oh, God.
I don't see how you could ever go on stage again after.
No, but let me tell you what happened. Susan was calling her mother and father on the telephone, and she said, "You'd better leave the room and go into the other bedroom, because I'm going to read the notices out to them." And so I went 2 rooms away, sat there with my little book, and I'm afraid I heard about 4 lines of the Times notice. And it was marvelous. And the man says, and when he says the word
Isn't it lucky that we're going to have to finish this story tomorrow night?
You mean we've been at it all that time?
Stop talking. It's amazing. And I have laryngitis. I don't understand. We'll get right to this. Okay. Richard Burton and